Okay, so we're going to talk through the lead evaluator's steps as they receive notification that the ACT team has submitted their data through the provider portal. So the first thing to know is that they're going to get an alert. The lead evaluator gets an alert as soon as that submission is made. Sometimes, however, depending on your email, it may show up in your junk email like it did here. So make sure you redesignate it as not being junk in your email system. So let's see. We have submitted our team. So Letitia and her team did not write this. It's an automated email that's going to come from eTMACT to let us know that they do have their information submitted. And as you can recall, Letitia's evaluation isn't until the end of May, and currently it's April 23rd at the time of this recording. So depending on how we're going to conduct the chart review, if it was to be remote ahead of the review, the soonest that they can get those client IDs, the better, because then we are in a position to review the charts, as long as the chart window selection makes sense. But otherwise, the default expectation is that 5 business days ahead of the first day of the on-site review is when eTMACT will generate those IDs and send it in an email to Letitia and her team. So if we're logged in to eTMACT as the lead evaluator, we will go and select this team, Northern ACT team. We will see that now, because the submission happened, we get to see more of eTMACT. More of the menu and tools are showing up on the left. Our job is to review what she submitted in the team and see if we see any glaring omissions that we'd want to track down ahead of time. Really, one of the biggest, most important things is that they do have this client roster set up, that there isn't reason to think it's incomplete, because that's where the random selection of charts is going to be pulling from. So as we've discussed, there's a firewall. Nobody else other than the ACT team logging in with their secure password, nobody else can see any names at all. One thing to check is whether or not the clients listed here, and they will be, for the first evaluation, it's going to look 1 through, in this case, 47. In the future, when the Northern ACT team undergoes a review, they have a chance to migrate over the client roster, and then they go through and edit out who's been discharged, and then they add new clients. At that point, you're going to see a little disruption in the flow, because if client 5 has been discharged, it will jump from client 4 to client 6. So you can't simply just look at that last ID number, but here we can. So we want to go to the team survey and just double check. How many people did they say they were serving? 47. That gives us reason to know they did go through and set up the client roster versus someone started it, didn't get through it. Letitia completed the survey and we know we're missing a lot of clients. So the next step would be to just look at the team survey, go through it, see if you see anything absent. Know that some information is fine if we track it down on the day of the site review. The lead evaluator is the only one who can edit any of this information at this point, not the co-evaluator and not the team leader. One thing that we do have to do is skim through the table of staff to make sure people look like they fit the criteria for being part of the team. Notice that Ed Smith does not have much information filled out here. There's a reason for that. compared to others. If you open up Ed, we will find out that Ed's no longer with the team. So, but when he was with the team, he was full-time. And we're going to make an assumption he was going to the daily team meetings at least twice a week as expected. So we'll click yes, meets inclusion criteria. If we get on site and find out that Ed actually wasn't going to any daily team meetings, he wouldn't meet inclusion criteria, and we'd come back and update this. Why we're caring about Ed is because for somebody not currently on the team is when we do the chart review, Ed's name is going to show up in our drop-down menu because we'll see notes from Ed if the window of review overlaps with when he was still on the team. And the team should get credit for Ed's performance at that time. So we'll confirm, save, and go back. But this confirmation process is supposed to happen for everybody. So see how it says not yet confirmed, Ed has. So one of our roles is to go through, skim this information, make sure nothing glaringly is missing that we want to track down ahead of time. We can tell Letitia started with the team earlier before being promoted to the team leader position. Confirm meets team inclusion criteria. Yes, hit save. Move on to the next person. You're just opening these forms, reviewing. We have 2 daily team meetings. It's the doctor. There's only one doctor. Yes, save. Move on to the nurse, Susan. Susan's full-time. And going to all the daily team meetings. Yes, save. Then we have Devante, employment specialist, full-time. Yes, save. Then we have Eva, the peer specialist, 40 hours, going to daily team meetings. Yes, save. And then we have Vanessa, a therapist who is 10 hours a week. That's a concern. So Vanessa is only working with the team 10 hours per week and is only going to 1 daily team meeting. She does not meet the ACT team inclusion criteria. Therefore, we say no and save. Then we have Marcus, 40 hours, going to daily team meetings. Yes, save. So again, we may find out more information on site, but right now we're doing a review to see if it looks like right now they meet inclusion criteria. So consequence to this is that when we do the chart review again, the system knows that Ed should be listed. His performance would count if his time overlapped with the window of review. However, in other calculations, such as the team of, the overall client to staff ratio, his staff time program size, his FTE is not going to count. So eTMACT knows where to count Ed and where not to count him. Similarly, Vanessa is judged to not meet team inclusion criteria at all. Therefore, her name will not show up in the drop-down menu for the chart review, and her information here is not going to be considered in any of the ratings. So that is the biggest part of the survey that we need to interact with as a lead evaluator as we review what was submitted before we confirm. Next is the client survey. So you are just going to be clicking through the areas and eyeballing it to make sure it's fairly filled out. Now, do know that if no is not checked at all, the system will basically treat it as a no. So sometimes that will happen and it's okay. The system will essentially count when nobody has checked off anything. It knows it's not a yes, and it's still going to count this person, the row, in the ultimate calculations. So we go through, select more, go, review. Then we hit select more, keep going through to just eyeball that there isn't columns left out, which can happen, especially if they are dividing and conquering this task and somebody didn't get to completing their columns. Sometimes you will find that the number of people listed in the client survey is a little different from what you read in the team survey. That's not unusual because what might have happened is they completed the team survey immediately after they had access to the provider portal, but then didn't get to this part until 2 weeks later. And then in the interim, 1 or 2 people were enrolled or somebody was discharged. And so the roster is a little bit off from the team survey. If it's only by a couple people, it's really not a big deal. What eTMACT will do is at times they're going to use, it will use the number of people in this roster. Other times it may use the number from the team survey. If it is more significant, more than 1 or 2 people, it may be worth rounding back to the team leader to get the information you need to go back and make the edits directly into the systems. All right. Sample document uploads. We see things here. Again, if there's items that appear to be missing, you don't necessarily have to track it down before. Just know, make note it's something. I would send an email saying these are items we hope to get from you at the time or before we visit the team. I wouldn't let this hold up confirming a submission, because the confirming the submission is what gets things rolling for the potential or the eventual, I should say, scheduling of the client chart selection. So I'm good. Those are the only things you're looking at. The rest of these tools are for our use during the review. You are just looking at client roster, team survey, client survey, sample document. But the biggest things is the roster peers filled out, team survey, team tables filled out, client survey is filled out. I'm going to hit commit, confirm submission now. And as you can see, now the button says confirmed on April 23rd, 2023. Okay, so we've confirmed. The next step is re-review what the plan is around the chart selection. You will find that information if you click on the name of the team up here, Northern ACT team. So we have currently set up that the chart review period is April 23rd to May 20th. And we indicated that it will not be a remote chart review. The default is always 20% sampling. The system is going to generate the IDs versus us doing it manually. And the ID generation date is May 18th. For the sake of this exercise and demonstration for you all, we're going to make some changes here so that we can continue capturing this information in this training series. So Letitia knows the on-site dates. At this time, she does not know the chart review period. That can be changed. She has not been given that. So we are going to update it because today's date for this recording is April 23rd, 2023. So if we wanted to give the team a chance to get the IDs early so that they have the time to prepare the documents and share with us so we can conduct a remote chart review. And what that means is before you go on site, you have an agreed upon secure way to access the selected documents for review. The team can set up a Microsoft team that is an encrypted, secure platform to share information. It is to the team's discretion, the extent that they want to redact information on the forms that are shared. And that way, the evaluation team can have more time to get through the chart review, and it alleviates some of the stress of the on-site review. So we'll update the chart review window. Per eTMACT training and the protocol, we should be reviewing a 4-week period that falls within 3 months, no more than 3 months out from the on-site review, because we want the chart data to be reasonably reflective of what we're evaluating and seeing on the day of the on-site review. We ended up being pretty close here, so we have lots of wiggle room to push this out. So if we move back to March 26th, notice that did not pick the end date for me this time. It did when we first set it up. It is not now that we're changing it. So I need to be careful to make sure I'm getting full 4 weeks. The easiest way is to start with a Sunday. So I'm on March, that's week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Oh, sorry. So we have the 26th. That's week 1, 2, 3, 4. There. ID generation. Now that we know that she has the information submitted, so if left blank, this field will default to 5 business days before the on-site visit start date. We're going to move it up. We cannot set it for today because the timing in which eTMACT system will look to see whether it can select charts will be early in the morning. So we're going to set this for the next day, April 24th. Now, every team and the circumstances for their evaluation may dictate how early it makes sense for the team to know whether or not, to know which client IDs have been selected. In this case, there's no reason why Letitia and her team can't get weeks advance notice of these IDs and then give us the time to do the remote review. So we'll hit save. And just as a reminder, it's best to have the system select those IDs. There is an option where you could say no, and that you will be manually selecting those IDs and sending them to Letitia and her team. So that's it. We have reviewed and confirmed and rechecked our decisions around the chart review.